Hello, everyone. I'm Christy Cohen, CEO of the RIA, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to part 2 of the RIA Meet the Candidates Forum. The purpose of the forum is to give RIA members the opportunity to learn more about each of our candidates for the 2022 Board of Directors election slate. Today's forum will be recorded and made available for on-demand viewing for RIA members who are unable to attend. The RIA election ballot will be sent out electronically via email in mid-March, and we encourage RIA members to participate in this very important process. So today we are joined by the following candidates. We have Mark Davis, CEO and Chairman of Signal Restoration Services and PuroClean. We have Mitch Heitman, who is the Regional Director of Operations for First ONSITE. Anthony Nelson, President of Premier Restoration Hawaii. Russ Palmer, owner of Titan Restoration of Arizona, and Matt Preston, Senior Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, and Corporate Secretary of Servpro Industries. So welcome to you all, and at this time, I will turn things over to RIA President Mark Springer, who will be facilitating today's event. Thanks, Mark.
All right, Christy, well, thank you. Thank you for all that you do. And yes, folks, welcome to such a robust part 2 of our Meet the Candidates Forum. We are so honored and pleased to have so many excellent candidates, and I hope that you will be able to take the time to get to know these candidates so that we can have the very best individuals representing our industry and our members with RIA, where our mission is to unite the industry and to advocate for the property restoration industry. We certainly are excited about the future of RIA and what is available for us to achieve those goals. As we speak with each of these candidates, we have really 3 things that we'll ask each of them to speak to today. First of all, we'll ask them to give a little bit of background about themselves and the current role they hold in the organizations that they serve in. And then we'll ask them about the challenges that they see the industry facing right now. And then finally, how RIA can address these issues and challenges that we have on behalf of the industry. We will be going through today's candidates in alphabetical order, and our voting will be available and open next week. Very important, folks, vote, as we have a very competitive election this year. So with that all being said, we turn first to Mr. Mark Davis, CEO of Signal and PuroClean. Mark, welcome. Start us off here today by telling us about your background in the property restoration industry and the role that you hold with Signal and PuroClean.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you, Christy, and thank you, everyone else. My background in the restoration industries started 26 years ago as a young 27-year-old that didn't know even the industry existed, and I was introduced to it through a broker. And I had a business partner, somebody I wanted to be in business with. We didn't have any money. His name's Jeff Johnson. So Jeff and I found a way to buy Rocky Mountain Catastrophe in Arvada, Colorado in April of 1996. And what did we buy? We bought an independent restoration company that was a member of DKI. It was doing slightly over $3 million in revenues, and 80% of that revenue was residential. It was all in Colorado. Most of it was in Metro Denver, and most of it was farmers and American family. And the prelude to program work, we were one of the first members of PRISM, which became Contractor Connection. And because when we bought Rocky Mountain Cat, we didn't know the industry at all. Again, I was 27, Jeff was 28, but Rocky Mountain Catastrophe was a member of DKI. And literally the first week after we bought the company, it was April 20th of 1996, there was a DKI convention, international convention in San Juan, Puerto Rico at the El San Juan. So it was an amazing way to get into the industry, and in the first week, meet so many other, I met Rusty Amarante there. I met the Rosebrooks, for example, and I ended up buying the Rosebrooks company a year later as my second acquisition. And so as part of this is DKI had a big part of my intro into the industry. So in that first year, when we bought the company doing slightly over $3 million, we did $11 million in revenues. Then we bought Spectrum Systems, the Rosebrooks company. We bought another company doing environmental work that was really in distress. And then we started another company called Recovery Solutions, where we hired 8 people from Munters in one day, including Teresa Williams and Richard Freund Robert Peaks and a number of the people that came with that were the Munters large loss team. We hired them all in one day. And next thing you know, we were not just Rocky Mountain Cat. We renamed the Rosebrooks company Pacific Catastrophe. We now had a large loss drying company called Recovery Solutions, and Hurricane Georges hit San Juan, Puerto Rico on September 30th, 1998. And literally next thing you know, our business model worked out because, again, we couldn't really afford those people. We didn't have money. We bootstrapped this to even buy the company. We paid $1.7 million to buy the company, and we literally borrowed 1.5 of it. So I did my first leverage buyout at 27, just because we believed in ourselves in the industry. And so then what happened in that third year, we did 35 million. And that's the year that Belfor decided to do an inquiry into the US and Canadian market. They were already consolidating in Europe. So my phone rang along with several other people. They interviewed Inricon at the time, BMS Cat, Harbro out in California, and a number of other of the larger platform companies. We were by far the smallest at 35 million, but we were recommended by Aon and Marsh. And when the Germans came and met with us, they liked us, they met with everybody else, and they picked us as their platform. So they decided they wanted to Mark Davis and Jeff Johnson to be their entry into the North American market. So on September 9th of 1999, Jeff Johnson and I co-founded Belfor in North America. We planted the Belfor flag for the first time in the US in Denver, Colorado, and in Eugene, Oregon, and in New York, where we had an office, and we had an office in Dallas. And next thing you know, we had a war chest of $400 million that the Germans had allocated for us to roll up the industry. So we bought a company in Dallas called DRS. We bought Bridgeway Construction in Seattle to give us a coast to coast. And then we had a chance to go after and buy who was the largest restoration company on the East Coast, and that was Inricon. So we pulled it off. We bought Inricon on July 12th, 2001, and that required me moving to Michigan. So I was in Denver that whole time, but and so that was in 2001. So 5 years later, I'm now moving my wife and my young 8-month-old son to Michigan, take over Inricon, rename it Belfor, and again, then the next few years, we continue to buy several other companies to roll up, become truly a US and Canadian nationwide contractor under Belfor. I sold my shares in Belfor. Jeff Johnson left before I did, just kind of for personal reasons. I left in 2004 and decided to do my own thing outside of the industry. I agreed to a 5-year non-compete. So I took 5 years off. And I took 5 years off after I built Belfor to be the market leader. And I experimented with other industries, and every single one of them wasn't as fulfilling. We weren't helping people recover from something catastrophic, either in their home or their business. And it just wasn't as exciting either. So I couldn't wait to get back in. So when I got back in, I did what a lot of people do. And I thought, well, since I've already been big, I'd rather start big. I teamed up with a private equity firm when we bought Instar. And that ended up being a challenge. And why, I've proven to myself I'm not a turnaround guy. I was not the right guy for that role. I know how to build companies. I'm not the guy that knows how to turn them around. And Instar had some major issues that I inherited. We did have great financial success, but it was really driven from Hurricane Ike. I can't take credit for it. When those storms happen and you're in that business, you can't explain why you do so well. But the company had an EPA issue that I inherited that in essence was a silver bullet. So I decided to leave Instar and do what I did before. And what I mean by what I did before is I looked back and said, why did Rocky Mountain Cat work? And then why did Instar not? Let me go back and pick a platform, and I'm going to do exactly what I did with Rocky Mountain Cat. And I picked Signal Restoration, very similar in that it was a husband and wife owned. They were just under 10 million in revenues. They only did work in Metro Detroit, never outside of the state of Michigan. And it was 80% residential, mostly State Farm PSP work. So I did the same thing at Signal. And last week was our 10-year anniversary of buying Signal. And Signal was, again, we had about 35 employees. Revenue was about 9 million. And in our first year, we did 130 million. Now, again, was that me? No, I cannot take credit for it. Yes, it happened because my phone was the one that rang, from New York City after Superstorm Sandy. But we got a call from the city of New York. It was to pump out one hospital at Coney Island Hospital in Brooklyn. But because our operations team that we'd hired right when I bought Signal from my previous employers and the companies I'd owned, is that we put together our large loss production team before we even had a large loss outside the state of Michigan. And one of our first losses ended up being $133 million that we did in 10 months. We got paid every penny, and it capitalized the Signal and put us on the market, or put us on the map as a large loss company. Well, instead of just following the old model, which was the Belfour model, to buy up really good, local restoration companies, my thought was, let's franchise Signal. So I was going to franchise Signal. I did some research. I talked to other franchisors. That was going to take too long. And one of the keys that I think that I've been successful with is I like to do things fast. I mean, we like to do them fast, but I operate at a very high tempo and high focus, high energy. And that was going to take too long. So then I decided, you know what, if we made quite a bit of money, obviously, on the New York job. And it was like, instead of paying ourselves, I had one partner. I'm like, let's not pay ourselves. Let's keep the money in the business, and let's see if we can go buy a franchise system. It's not easy to buy a franchise system. There are none for sale. I can tell you right now. We have the general counsel from Servpro, obviously the largest franchise system in the world, on the call, and I currently on the board. Is that we found, and it wasn't for sale, but we researched down the list and we saw, okay, way down the list was PuroClean. We looked at their FDD. They were shrinking in size every year. There was no program work. The owners were disengaged, and I made an unsolicited offer to buy PuroClean at a very high multiple. I paid a 21 multiple for it, but I knew at that time that, in essence, I believed anyway, that with my industry expertise and some really the willingness and desire to roll up my sleeves and really help our franchisees, help them grow their businesses, we made some commitments. We bought the company unsolicited. We made a commitment not to pull a penny out, not one penny out, for 2 years, minimum of 2 years, and reinvest every penny back in the company. We went 5 years and didn't take a distribution. So we went the first 5 years, put every penny back into the company. The company had about 210 units, restoration between US and Canada, of franchise units when we bought it. We now have 378, where we just added another 11 so far this year. So we will pass the 400 mark. We will actually hit the double mark this year, but also financial health. The thing we care about the most is the health of our individual franchisees, these small business owners, and focusing on them. So what did we do? We had no program work. We went out and landed Liberty Mutual, Allstate, Travelers, Heritage, and several other commercial property management companies, to where there was zero revenue driven to our franchisees when we bought the company. Last year, we sent 55 million in direct assignment. And this year we plan on that number being closer to 70, as we continue to work every day to serve our small business owners, those franchisees that again, and this is important for, I think, for you guys to know, or those that might be voting, is that although my experience was obviously at Belfour and that sort of thing, and at Signal, we do large loss. Yes, we do. We're one of the jobs we're doing in Pittsburgh right now is $70 million. It's one of the biggest jobs I think I know of in the industry. We're doing another one for 60 million in New York. But quite frankly, that isn't what I spend most of my time on. I spend most of my time on PuroClean and the small business owners, those franchisees, and helping them deal with issues like, and this is a kind of into question number 2, but we're dealing right now with Symbility and the fact that Liberty Mutual is switching from Exactamente to Symbility, and we're running comparative estimates on apples to apples on the exact same residential water damage. Okay, we're just not getting what we need at all on demo out of the Symbility estimates, and we're bringing it up to them, and so they're turning out to be about 25% less on Symbility on those estimates than they are on Exactamente. So that's just an example of kind of things that I do. But so now where we are, Signal does about 200 million, is debt free, and we do only commercial large losses, and we prefer them 500,000 and up. And at PuroClean, we now have 378 units as of our 12/31/2021. We'll surpass 400 this year. We're also debt free, and why that's important is we're not levered, and we invest back in the companies, and we invest heavily in training. And again, it's just one of those things where my role in the company is such, I'm a chairman and CEO of both companies. I don't run the day-to-day. We have day-to-day professional management, so I can focus on vision and strategy. And if elected to this board, I will have the time and the passion and the desire to help the board and help the membership drive some of these very important critical issues that I know you've spent years and you've made a lot of progress, believe me. So congratulations to the board that's been grinding it out for the last 10 years. You've come a long way, and I think we're in a platform position now where we can really catapult the industry, especially with membership drives and that sort of thing. I've heard some wonderful things about it. I'm going to commit from a PuroClean standpoint that I'm going to pay for every new PuroClean. That would have been 77 last year. I'll even make a retro. I'll pay for all 77 of them to join. Same thing with this year, which will be another 80. So I'll pay for the first year for 150 of our franchisees to join RIA, and I'll make that commitment every year, the first year, and then we'll show value, obviously, as the RIA level, and then hopefully they'll renew from that point. So I hope I didn't take too long to answer that question, but I did want to go into some detail.
Well, Mark, you fit a lot in there in that answer, and we definitely have, there's a lot in your background. I think you kind of answered all three questions there in that answer. So in the sake of us keeping our time schedule here, I think you hit all three of those points. I'm going to move now over to Mr. Heitman. Thank you, Mark, for your passion for our industry, your support of RIA. We appreciate all of that. And now over to Mitch Heitman. Mitch, welcome here today. Mitch has served on our board now as an appointed board member, now running through the election for his first term. Mitch, thank you for the work that you've done with RIA so far. Tell us more about your background now in the restoration industry and the role that you have at First ONSITE.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And it's a tough conversation to follow up there, Mr. Davis. So thank you for that. Definitely not as large of a background there, but we, my dad started the company back in 1993 with $100 in a pickup truck and grew it into about a $10 million operation when I came aboard. I graduated high school and came on board full time, I think 3 or 4 days right after that. We, continued to open offices and grow the business organically. Then we realized in the commercial space, obviously that's what everybody kind of wants to point towards. So we created a national division, and I responded all over the country, really just myself and a couple other people, and we grew it into a much larger organization. And we did that for about 9 years or so. And then we were acquired by First ONSITE, Legacy Interstate at the time. Great group of people. And we've really grown into being the entire upper Midwest region. We have about 225 employees under our region here, and do about $110 million a year. So it's definitely growing into a pretty substantial corporate region for the company. I've seen it on both sides. So both as an independent and growing, and all the pains and the pain points that you have as an independent, and then also on the flip side on the corporation piece. We process about 3,000 residential projects a year out of our region, and we also handle very large multi-million-dollar complex projects all over the Midwest as well. So that's really my background, Mark.
Awesome, Mitch. And then one of the things Mitch has been leading, we'll be talking about down in Reno when we're together for the convention, is the regional focus groups for RIA. So I'm sure that'll be something you'll touch on as far as RIA in the future, Mitch. But as you survey the challenges in the industry from your vantage point there with not only First ONSITE, but the involvement you've had with RIA in the past, what do you consider to be the key challenges that we will face over the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot that you can look at and focus on. Hopefully they're going to change for workforce situations, not, the new generation coming in and not being able to find everybody, the pandemic, you can material shortages and pricing. I mean, you can get into a lot of things, but what I really focus on 3 things that the RIA can be influential in. The first one is TPAs emerging into the commercial market. The challenge is going to be created by their expectations and guidelines requiring the restorers to comply to them, similar to residential programs, which obviously don't fit in the commercial world. You have industrial and retail and healthcare, educational. A TPA guideline and program is just not going to work in that environment. So I think that's a big one. The next one is, as the industry continues to consolidate, as we've seen over the past 2 to 3 years, it's going to increase difficulties for the independent restorer to compete, just as we've seen in other industries, such as retail with Walmart and other corporations coming in, and it's just makes it more difficult for the smaller independent. And lastly, and one of the biggest, is technology. technology is driving our industry so hard right now. And with the evolving technology, it's going to create a level of expectation from the carrier, the client, the corporation that owns these very large companies. And the restorers are going to have to deliver on that. That adds ever-changing improvements and costs associated with it that is difficult for independents and corporations to keep up with. And I really feel that's going to be a big challenge in the future here.
So, RIA, how can this association positively impact and improve the restoration ecosystem, not just out in the future, but right now in the present and then into the future as well?
Absolutely. A lot of thought put into this answer here. And I really came down to it. It's pretty simple. I really think that the RIA just needs to continue doing what it's doing right now. It's really gaining a lot of traction with the membership, training improvements. Obviously, the AGA is a huge piece of that and absolutely influential in the industry. The RIA is on the right path to make the industry a better place. Obviously, there's always ways to improve, but I think really the core values of the RIA is in the right place right now. From a couple of years, 5-6 years ago to now, I've seen a lot of tremendous strides in the RIA, and especially now being on the board and on the regional focus group committee, which I think will be another one, just to plug my own committee there a little bit. That's to really break the membership down into different groups that can really focus and have smaller conversations and be able to improve the communication back and forth to the RIA leadership there. But again, I've really just seen tremendous strides and really looking forward to the future with it.
Excellent. Well, Mitch, thank you, and good luck to you in the coming election.
Thank you.
And next, we've got Mr. Anthony Nelson, the most envied person on this call for his location. I had yesterday morning when I woke up, Anthony, I had 2 feet of fresh snow and -6-degree temperatures. So I would love to be where you are right now. But why don't you tell us, I know you've been in Hawaii your whole life, but why don't you tell us about your background in the industry and then what got you to where you are with your company, Premier Restoration.
Right on. Thank you, Mark, Christy, for having me. This is awesome. So if you went back to 2000, I don't know if Detroit is like a restoration incubator, but that's originally where I'm from. I grew up just outside of Ann Arbor, and I had just graduated high school, and just a normal guy from the questionable side of the railroad tracks, looking for a job and trying to make an honest living. And I fell into restoration. My joke is, I don't think any of us were sitting in the sandbox going, hey, I want to be in basements sucking out sewage, and that's my life's ambition. But we end up here. And I know for me, the reason why I ended up there was because, there was always this passion that I had inside to take care of people and to make a difference in the world. And this was an opportunity for me to do that. And I didn't have to go to 7 years of school to become a doctor. And so while I kind of tripped and fell into restoration, I fell in love with it. I really did. And so I spent the next 9 years with Coach's Catastrophe Cleaning and Restoration Services in Southeast Michigan. I was a technician for a long time. Then I escalated to project manager when Tim Fagan wanted to open the Lansing location. I asked if I could be the person to open that location. And so I opened my branch office in Lansing, Michigan at 25 years old. Quickly took that office from nothing to roughly 2 million inside of 2 years in a population market of around 500,000. So, and it wasn't done through anything other than blood, sweat, and tears. So, and then the way the economy was going in 2009, my wife originally was a public educator. She was trying to find a job in Michigan, and there was just no teaching jobs to be found. And I happened to know an individual who had a restoration company in Maui in Hawaii, and him and I used to joke about me coming out and working for him. And so in 2009, we made the choice to move here. I spent from 2009 to 2016, worked in a variety of roles with Steve at Maui Fire and Flood. We took that organization from roughly 18 members to 50, roughly $1 million to $10 million in revenue, all local Maui business. Hawaii is a different market. You can't correlate population size and density to revenue, but yeah, it was a very, very interesting time period. Originally started as an estimator, and then within a year I became operations manager and kind of held that title or a similar title to it. And then 2016, Steve's appetite for risk started to wane, whereas mine continued to grow. And so we recapitalized and became Premier Restoration in 2016, opened our branch office in Oahu, bootstrapped another location in Kona. And then we did an acquisition for Kauai, recognizing it was a smaller market and we weren't likely to find success unless we bought somebody. And I just happen to have a good friend over there. And so we did that acquisition. Kauai's been with us for about a year. First restoration company in history to bring all 4 islands, have brick and mortar locations on all 4 islands. And so that's something that I'm really, really genuinely proud of. Today we have 160 team members, and hopefully this year we'll do 28.5 million. That's where I hope we'll fall. A lot of it's contingent on if things continue to move the direction we're going.
Well done. Congratulations on your success and picking such an excellent place to be successful.
Thank you.
You obviously are passionate about the restoration industry, and I know you and I have talked in the past about some of the challenges that we face. Why don't you speak about some of the ones that you feel are the most important for restorers to be mindful of or cognizant of over the next 3 to 5 years?
You know, I knew this question was coming, and so I spent a lot of time thinking about it the past couple of days. And it was about a month ago. We're members of Restoration Affiliates, and it was a group, myself and a few other owners. We were sitting around the table, and the average census of Restoration Affiliates owners is significantly older than myself. And we were just talking story, and a lot of folks have children that are coming, out of high school and into college. And my question that I posed to them was, are your kids getting into the business, or do you want your kids to get into the business? And the answer from around the table was a resounding no way. And so I asked why. And everybody kind of agreed that the business today is not what the business was 20 years ago. Now I have a little bit of insight because that's when I started in the business. And, for reflecting back, a lot of us get into restoration because we just genuinely want to make a difference. It's a unique place for us to show up and be able to make a difference for somebody. And then as things have evolved through the years, it's gotten increasingly more complex with TPAs. And now there's this battle with pricing and all these nuances. And so really why I'm interested in joining the board is because I want to fix all of that. I'm in a different position in the fact that, my 4.5-year-old's she's 4.5. So there's probably a good 15 years. And maybe we can turn the tides on the restoration industry and turn it into a place to where my daughter, I would answer yes, I want my kid to get into this business. So drilling down, I think if you were to look at the top 3 things that I have an interest in fixing, number 1, training. Training has evolved significantly. I recently wrote an article in CNR magazine kind of talking about the importance of including the why in your training. Gone are the days where you can just show up on a job site and say, make it clean, and then come back and check it and not give anybody any background on why what they're doing is important. Pricing is a huge problem. And Xactimate, I don't know, I still scratch my head on how and why it worked previously, but I know why it doesn't work right now, particularly in my market. I spent a considerable amount of time and energy putting together a materials pricing survey across 20 markets as a part of my research with the AGA pricing committee. So I think there's opportunity to fix that. I think there's momentum too. There's momentum in the industry and a desire to fix that on both sides. And number 3, I feel like we lost the pride in what we do somewhere along the line. And I get it. I'm not saying that any of us are to fault there, because I feel it for myself, but I want to bring recognition. I want to bring, everybody looks at the trades, right? There's journeyman electricians and those types of things. And I want to bring recognition and a sense of pride back to our industry, because we lost that somewhere along the way.
So RIA, how can RIA positively impact some of these challenges that you just described?
So I think there's already a lot of momentum on pricing. So I think it's keep everybody who's engaged, Ben Justison and everybody else engaged, and give us opportunity and resources and enough time, and we will turn the tide. The boat moves slow, but I think that ball's already in motion. With regards to training, I think that it's, I know AGA is starting to put together some resources as far as training and education, but I think there's room for a broader, like lower level, 100 level training and education. I know we have the IICRC, but those certifications tend to focus more on the technical aspects and not on the soft skills. And that's where I feel like the void truly is. And then as far as, branding, kind of elevating the industry, I think we need to turn the tide on, all these challenges. Like, I think if we go and we resolve pricing and we create a good, positive training environment where individuals can elevate themselves, then you will have that sense of pride back. And I love what Michelle Blevins is doing with her, her focus column on restoration companies that are giving back in the community. And so I would love to see the RIA start to really shine a bright spotlight on all the good that we do for the world, because I feel like that's what's missing. Like, the reason why let's not mince words. The reason why most of us got into this is because we like being the hero. We like being that individual who shows up in somebody's time of need to kick butt. We appreciate that. And we need to bring recognition to that as an industry association.
Anthony, thank you for taking time in your very early day over in Hawaii. I know you just dropped your daughter off at school, I think it was. Appreciate you sharing your heart on those things, and best of luck to you in the election next week.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, over to Russ Palmer. Russ also is not a rookie with RIA's board, has served a term and now seeking a second term by election. Russ, give us your background in the restoration industry and talk about what you're doing at Titan.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for being a part of this. I'm super humbled to be a part of this this panel. I mean, I've got a lot of really great friends on this same call that I've met through the industry, and a lot of great mentors, and a lot of guys on here have taught me a lot. So it's truly humbling to be a part of this. And just so everybody knows, we've got an amazing group of candidates that are out there, that are amazing group of men with all kinds of backgrounds. So again, it's truly humbling. So my background, 26 years ago, I started as a carpet cleaner, cleaning carpets for a property management company while I was going to Arizona State University to get my accounting degree. Kind of fell into the industry, like Anthony said. We really enjoy it, and grew my business from there. We've expanded. We focused on floods and fires, and then moved in from floods and fires to full service restoration in 2005. We've been a part of this. Now we've just recently expanded from Phoenix. We were a single location independent for many years, and just expanded from Phoenix to Tucson last year. And so now we have 2 locations, and we're just still an independent, still working our way, and trying to do what we can to be a part of this industry and help out. So
excellent, Russ, and thank you for what you've done with RIA. As you look at the challenges that the industry faces, which ones do you think are most important and are going to affect our companies the most over the next 3 to 5 years?
Mark, this industry is changing so rapidly from where it was 3 to 5 years ago. I've thought about this a lot, and I was looking, I'm like, we have a lot of immediate needs in the next 6 to 12 months. A lot of us are facing, like Anthony said, issues with pricing, inflation, gas prices. We may not even have 6 to 12 months. We may have 6 to 12 weeks to kind of get that figured in and dialed out, or we're going to have really issues. We also have pricing issues with core logic coming in or Symbility coming in, like Mark spoke about. Trying to get that figured out. I liken that to, I speak pretty good English, but Symbility is like learning a second language, like Spanish. I'm gonna fumble and try and get through this and have some issues through there that, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of Symbility, what works, what doesn't, how to provide pricing feedback, how to check those items. And I really appreciate Mark saying he's going through this and has a team looking at it, and look forward to hearing what they find out from that. You know, the other thing that, as Anthony had spoke to, we're all having issues with labor. Nobody wants to be a water restoration technician that's on call all hours of the night, has to get up Christmas Eve, get called out to go suck a, you know, basement or whatever that may be, full of sewage water. And it's not a really glorious job when you can be saying, you know, my pleasure working at a Chick-fil-A for about the same price as a starting water technician. And I really like Anthony, the way I've talked with him over the years. He has a metric in his internal metric that they call the Tacoma metric. Tacomas are a hot item, and that's kind of the cool car in Hawaii. And he's able to go out of the parking lot, see how many new Tacomas are out there and how many people he's impacted. You know, the guys are driving junkers that are now driving Tacomas. And it's fun to see guys that don't want to go to college or get caught up in the, you know, get a bunch of student debt or that type of stuff in order to further themselves along. They jump in this industry, and there's a lot of career, a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities for them that you can do. And so there is a lot of that there. And just helping them understand the career path from technician to, you know, lead technician, project manager, or to potential even on the reconstruction side, and superintendents or estimators.
Russ, as you look at RIA and its ability to influence and impact these issues that you just described, where do you think we should be focusing our energy, and what can we do to positively impact the restoration ecosystem in some of these areas you just addressed?
One of the things I noticed really well that you've done really good, Mark, is you took the time as an incoming president and president-elect, and I'm just not sure if you're still president-elect, or going out president, but your time in your leadership position, you reflected and got a clear vision for what you want the RIA to look like. So there was a clear vision, a clear marching order that everybody could kind of jump in and gather behind and help along, lift, you know, make that lifting together. Katie's in a really good position to take that vision and take it to the next step over her tenure that she's coming in. As part of that, you came up with the AGA, which was something that, you know, it was a little, you know, between COVID and everything else that hit, it was a little rocky, but it's done really, really well, and has come out and provided some really great insight for the industry. The other things that have worked really well were the position statements that have come out, that have helped out a lot. The RIA and the different groups that have come in and helped out with different position statements that we can take and use immediately to help defend our positions and to help ourselves defend our bills to these insurance companies that ultimately they want to pay as little as possible, and we need just help sometimes defending what we're doing. You know, we're a sharp bunch of guys, but we're not college educated or college trained, with the exception of maybe Matt Preston. He's the smartest guy in the room, actually has a law degree. The rest of us, we just, like Mitch, came right out of high school and went to work. You know, we went to the school of hard knocks. So, but that's where RA has done really, really well. Education too is the other area that keeps coming up. The relationship with the IICRC and trying to build that career path from the WRT into the advanced designations all the way to the CR designation.
Russ, good luck to you in the upcoming election. Thank you again for everything that you've done for the industry and for RIA.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, and last by alphabetical order today, we have Mr. Matt Preston, Senior VP at Servpro. Matt, thank you for taking your time to be here with us today and for your application for the board. Matt has served as an appointed member of the RIA Board of Directors over the past year, and certainly appreciate your service as well, Matt. Matt, tell us about your background, not only in the restoration industry, but just your background in corporate America, and especially then as well, tell us about the role that you hold at Servpro.
Yeah, happy to, Mark. First, let me thank you and Christy for holding this this forum, and what a great group of people on this call. I've truly enjoyed the last hour listening to everybody else. What momentum the RIA has at this point, and that's really why I'm here, right? I joined Servpro almost 10 years ago, in 2012. As Chief Legal Officer, I'm responsible for all the legal and risk issues at the company, but I'm also responsible for government affairs and regulatory affairs. I have a background in that from previous positions. And I'm a member of the senior executive leadership team at Servpro. As you mentioned, Mark, I joined the RIA board just about a year ago. So I've had a year's worth of exposure and really enjoyed it and excited about the direction the RIA has taken. Servpro has almost 2,000 franchises now. And because of that, I think we've got a very, very good visibility into what's happening in trends in the restoration industry. We're across a very large residential and commercial platform. And, sometimes I think we have the luxury or possibly the curse of seeing things earlier than others are seeing out there in terms of trends and challenges. And that's something that has been great over the last year, as I've been able to surface things and talk to other members of the board and say, hey, are you seeing this? Are you seeing that? How do we get after this before it gets big and it starts to impact restorers? What's interesting, though, is I come at this a little bit differently. I'm not a restorer. I've been to a number of jobs, probably not enough, honestly. I come at this more from a strategic business opportunity standpoint and from a government affairs and a regulatory standpoint, because make no bones about it, I'm watching the restoration industry. We're watching it become a regulated industry across a number of state and localities right now. And that's a trend that's just going to accelerate and make it harder and harder for people to do business in our industry. So before I joined Servpro, I was with Yum Brands, which owns Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC, and in a number of senior leadership positions. And at Yum, I learned firsthand the value and the power of a strong industry trade association. There we had the National Restaurant Association and several others, and they were forces in the business, making it better to protect and advance the interests of all the restaurant operators that were out there. And a strong and engaged trade association is extremely important to an industry. It allows everybody to come together and work collaboratively to both protect and advance the interests of all the operators, in this case, the restorers. So when I first came to Servpro 10 years ago, one of the first questions I asked was, is there a trade association? And the answer I received was less than I had hoped for. And I had some early on contacts, but by no means was the RIA where it is now. So I continued to follow the RIA and have discussions, hoping and that we'd get in the right direction and I could get involved when that occurred. And when Mark approached me a year ago, I was able to say I'm just so pleased with the progress that I've seen over the past, call it 3 to 5 years, and the traction that the RIA has gained in terms of again advancing the interest of restorers all across the country, right? After a year of this involvement on the RIA board, I can tell you that the RIA leadership team is bright, engaged, and forward-looking, and that's what we need here. But most importantly, they're servant leaders. People are here not because of their egos; they're here because they want to make the industry better. I think that's super exciting and a big feature of why I want to continue to be a member of the RIA board.
Matt, I appreciate that. You definitely wove kind of a number of the questions there together in what your comments were there. Is there any other aspects that you'd like to speak about as to what you believe RIA can be doing to positively impact the restoration ecosystem? There's a lot of things you've been involved with us on. Is there any other areas you think are currently not addressed or things that we should be looking at you'd like to address? And if you don't have any further comments, that's fine, but I want to give you an opportunity for that.
Well, just very quickly, I want to just highlight a few of the challenges I think we're seeing out there. And Mark, you were very kind to allow me to talk at the town hall last year at the RIA annual meeting. But consolidation in the industry is at a pace that's unbelievable right now. And the rise of private equity and institutional capital coming in is just changing the face of the restoration industry, virtually overnight, although it's been the last 3 to 5 years. I know we've been involved in it and others on the call have been involved in it. But, this roll up in consolidation is going to continue, and it's going to have send waves throughout everybody's operations. The rise of the full service model right now. It used to be that you could do mitigation and not worry about having to do the reconstruction put back work, but we're seeing more and more across our national account platforms that just isn't the case. At least right now, full service is where people want to be. So operators have to embrace that or potentially risk losing the mitigation work, which is definitely a change in the industry. Technology, others have mentioned it, unbelievable right now. Technology is driving this industry. And now you have, arguably 2 competing work streams there with the 2 pricing platforms and the associated technology around them, which are going to bring challenges to just about everybody. And then I mentioned regulation. We are beginning to see more and more regulation of restorers across the state and localities. California is a big one, obviously. You have the California Movers Act out there that impacted anybody that was moving contents. And there's things that are sneaking into legislative agendas that we're catching, maybe not fast enough. So I'm really excited. So we'll segue into your next point, Mark, and that is what can the RIA do and continue to do to make a great difference in the industry? I think there's 2 channels here. One is the advocacy channel, and I think a great start there. Primarily in the pricing area, although a lot of work on the consultants and the TPAs and others. I know our franchise operators have seen that, and they're seeing the difference that it's making. But the traction that's been gained with Exact and the pricing platform, and I hope that will continue with Symbility, has been nothing short of phenomenal. And it really, it's we look at the metrics very carefully at Servpro, and there's no doubt in my mind that you've moved the needle considerably. There's still work to be done. I know we're working a lot on a number of different advocacy opportunities here. So I'm excited about getting involved in that. But the second channel I think we should move into as a trade association is truly the government affairs and regulatory angle. All the good trade associations, the successful ones I'm familiar with, are strong in those areas. They're getting in front of issues. They're shaping legislative agendas, not only getting in way and blunting legislation that could be harmful for restorers, but they're coming up with positive legislation that might actually facilitate more work and better conditions for restorers throughout the country.
Excellent, Matt. Thank you for your comments on that. There's been a couple of questions here, and certainly would encourage anyone who would like to ask any other questions of the candidates. If you do have a question for one of the candidates specifically, make sure that you identify which candidate you'd like to address the question to. But one of the members, one of the attendees asked the question, how do you currently view education within the industry and the importance of certifications or designations? I want to give the candidates an opportunity to address that question. Let's try to be as succinct as possible, as we've got a limited time left. So about maybe a 1-minute answer to that. And I'd like to just go in reverse order there of how we started. So Matt, would you be willing to tackle that one first?
Sure. So my personal view is that certifications and designations are extremely important. It's what differentiates us from other tradespeople in the industry in many cases. And what I've seen is what differentiates good restorers from not so good restorers. I think it's important that we continue to do that. And we have a great emphasis on that at Servpro.
Excellent. Thank you. Russ.
Matt, great. I always love the way you put it so succinctly, but also the relationship we have with the IICRC now, where we are working together and not as opposing forces where we were 5, 6, 7 years ago. Great job with that, Mark. Getting that together, and then just making sure we provide a clear pathway for the guys so that we don't just have the revolving door of the water techs coming in and wanting to go out for another 25, 50 cents an hour more.
Thank you, Russ. Mr. Nelson, I know you already spoke a little bit to this issue as one of the challenges that you identified. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
I think that there, I think Darren, I kind of read his comment in the chat, but I think he hits on, there's a lack of continuity. There's an abundance of resources, most of them technical, but there's a lack of continuity and a lack of a clearly defined career path if you're a technician coming into the industry. And so I think there is an opportunity for us to be able to provide that with the RIA, and then, making sure that we include those soft skills. Nothing frustrates me more than having a technician who's very, very competent, technically great with the customers, but has no leadership skills, and I can't promote them to the next position that they're wanting to have.
Well said. Mitch?
Yes, I agree with all the answers there. I think that one of the main things is the technical certifications are great, and it gives them the understanding of how jobs need to be, completed from beginning to end. However, like Anthony just touched on, we've been investing a lot in leadership training and also just standard personal skills. I mean, even just emails and those kinds of things. We have a training system that they go through, and it really review your emails. An email comes off, it doesn't have any exclamation points or questions, anything like that when you're actually talking to somebody. So I think that it's not only the industry certifications, but also all of the other personal skills to try to improve on technicians all the way up through the entire company.
Excellent. And last but not least, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Yes, what's interesting is when I bought PuroClean back 6 years ago, the very, very first thing we decided to do with the reinvestment of those funds that we were not going to be taking out of the company, and which we didn't for 5 years, was we invested heavily in an online training academy, and literally hundreds of courses, including the career path that you just talked about, that would be water mitigation level 1, water mitigation tech level 2, and then on to water mitigation supervisor 1, supervisor 2, including also the interpersonal components of that. Because what we've been trying to do and what the industry would really benefit from is consistency across the board. And one of the other ways to do that is through celebrating and incentivizing those people that are in the field. They are the face of all of our companies. And as the industry as a whole, and we're battling challenges from the third-party consultants and challenges from the desk adjusters and all that, the more consistent we can be as an industry, okay, then the more successful we'll be at battling these constant attacks that we're getting from every angle. And so certainly we'd be willing to help contribute whatever we can as it relates to that for a lot of the hundreds of courses we've already done. We've also done them in English and in Spanish. And we've also have an entire series of them that are kind of under 4 minutes, under 6 minutes. So you think about it, you can do them on your iPad or on your iPhone, which is where most of our technicians are in the truck or in the van, that sort of thing. But so again, the consistency is probably the single most important. And when it becomes a part of the culture of not just all of your companies, it sounds like all of your individual companies or your franchise systems do, but when the industry itself, we all know that we need to help elevate, someone else used that verb, it's one of my favorites earlier in the call. We need to help elevate the standard and elevate the average of what is the expectation of the industry. And we can do that at the RIA level.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mark, and thank you to everyone who took time to help our members get to know each of you a little bit better here today. Thank you for each of you having the ambition and taking the time, investing the time to get to this point. I want to wish everyone well in the election that is up next week. For any of our members who are listening, make sure that you do vote and encourage other friends that you have in the industry, other RIA members, to make sure that they vote as well. With that, thank you again to each of you. I will hand back to Christy to wrap us up.
All right. Thank you again to all of the candidates for being with us today. Thank you for the RIA members who participated. This will be recorded and made available for on-demand viewing. So we will be distributing both part 1 and part 2 to our RIA members. And, in the meantime, folks should be on the lookout for some email notifications alerting them to our election ballots, which will be going out very soon next week. And so certainly we appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and good luck to each of you in the election. Thank you all.
Thank you.